the India-Israel friendship, the Honorable Minister for Economy from Israel, His Excellency Mr. Nir Barkat, Mr. Amardeep Singh Bhatia, Secretary, Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, Government of India, His Excellency Mr. Reuven Azar, the Ambassador of Israel to India, Mr. Avi Balashnikov, Chairman of the Board, Israel Export Institute, Mr. Sanjeev Puri, Chairman of CII and also Chairman of ITC Limited, one of the largest business conglomerates in India. I lose track of his market cap because every time I meet him, it seems to have grown further. Excellencies, all the distinguished guests from Israel, business persons, startups, innovators, friends from business in India, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Excellency, for putting together such a wonderful group of friends in such a short period of time, and compliments to our teams who've really worked hard, both the business chambers, both the ambassadors and their teams. But most importantly, I think you were the driving force behind making this happen in a short period of time. It was only in November or end of November when we talked about it. And for my friends from India, they know, and they always thought that I was tough on them. But now I can always tell them that there's somebody else who's tougher than me. We have so much in common, Israel and India. You very rightly pointed out a few things. Most importantly, terrorism is our common enemy. We have, just like you, suffered for years and years. People coming across the border, people within the country, disturbing peace and tranquility of the country, disturbing our progress towards a better future for our people. And that is why I suspect that Mr. Netanyahu and Prime Minister Modi are good friends, because they both work with a shared purpose of putting an end to Naxalism, to terrorism. We in our country are also, in some sense, working towards eliminating the problems that we have been facing for so many years. By 2026, that's next year, the whole country is going to be freed entirely from Naxalite activities. That's the internal urban or Naxalites who are working within the country and disturbing the peace of the land. And on terrorism also, Prime Minister Modi has had a zero tolerance policy. I think when our neighbor tried to have some attacks on Indian soil, in the first instance we had some surgical strikes pinpointing the location where the terrorists came from and attacking and demolishing the terrorist base there. When they tried a second time around, we went after them with airstrikes. They're called the Balakot airstrikes, famously in India. So we can really resonate with the problems that you are facing in your country. And therefore, I pray and wish for peace and harmony in the region, and I hope that all your colleagues come back safe and sound. I hope that nobody ever tries to do the kind of activities that both our countries have suffered from. And I think what you did with the pagers, is what legends are all about. And that message, I believe, has gone loud and clear across the world to anybody and everybody who thinks that they can attack sovereign nations, democratic nations, nations working for progress of their people. In one way, I also have a deep connect with Israel, maybe at a karmic level. But an amazing story which I recounted to you when we first met. I was all of 13 years old because I remember it was in class 8 in school when I read the Leon Ury history of Israel, Exodus. And I remember as a young person, despite school, it was absolutely what they call an unput-downable book. I just could not stop reading. I used to read all through nights. I used to read through early morning before I got a few hours of sleep and got back to school, only to come back and pick up the book again. It was truly a life-changing history that I read. And ever since then, so you can imagine, some of you may have already checked out my age, but for such a long period of time, one of my greatest desires has been to visit Israel and possibly live in a kibbutz if I can. But God has His own ways. I don't know, for some reason or the other, while we've had multiple travels all over the world, both in my private life before I became a minister or as a minister, the one country that has eluded me for so many years, so many decades, is Israel. I've still not been able to figure out how and why. Or maybe I was waiting for Neil to come in. He has a solution to every problem. Would you agree with me, Ambassador? But I tell you, the energy, the enthusiasm that he brings to the table, the confidence that we can take this relationship to the next level, the commitment to India and Israel, who are natural partners, natural allies in every which way, becoming much stronger allies, is truly remarkable. And I'd like to place on record my deepest appreciation, Mr. Barkat, for your confidence in India, for your friendship, and I do believe for your enduring love and affection for both India and for me as a friend. Friends, India is a country that went through different stages in its development journey. For the first 4 or 5 decades, we largely remained a state-run economy, following the pattern of the socialist economies, where the government did everything to promote industry, to promote growth. So if you see our period from 1947 to 1991, we largely remained under state control. Private businesses were very few business houses, but largely the government would decide the priorities of the nation, would decide which industries to invest in, where to invest in, what should be the education people receive. And I think those were years where we lost a lot of opportunity. Post the 90s, we have emerged out of the shadows. We've opened up our economy to greater global engagement and interaction. We focused on the private sector to help develop the economy, help reach a better quality of life to the people of India. We've had our ups and downs post-90s where we saw periods of stability, some periods of instability. We saw economic reform, opening up of the financial markets, sometimes aggressively, sometimes at slower speed. But without trying to politicize the subject, I think what India has witnessed in the last decade is something that was not ever in the realm of imagination of most Indians. In the last 10 years, the economy has grown very rapidly on three pillars. We had inherited pretty much a fragile economy, a very weak economy, with very poor macroeconomic fundamentals in 2014. In fact, the world had called us a fragile five economy. We had low growth, high inflation, low foreign exchange reserves. There were tough times. A lot of corruption scandals in the 4 or 5 years tumbling out before 2014, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi took charge of the country's government. He worked on three principal pillars, and I am sharing this little historical perspective to come to what India has to offer for all of you. On the one hand, he focused on strengthening the macroeconomic fundamentals. Second, he focused on improving the infrastructure of the country so that we can take economic prosperity to the length and breadth of the nation. And thirdly, he focused on public welfare so that all those marginalized sections of society, those who had been deprived of even basic things like water and electricity or housing, got a better deal in life, and government focused its energies on ensuring that every child in the country gets food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, education. We reach electricity to every home. We are working towards taking water through a tap to every family in the country. We are trying to connect the remotest parts of India, every village, with good quality rail network, road network. And through the last 10 years, our efforts have paid rich dividends. Today we have a strong macroeconomic situation where we can withstand shocks, the shock of COVID, the shock of 2 wars, almost taking global dimensions. Some study told us there are over 50 countries today, in one way or the other, one form or the other, who are at war, including some of the African countries, including countries impacted directly, indirectly by the Ukraine-Russia crisis, the Palestine-Israel conflict. And collectively, we are living in very, very turbulent geopolitical times. Despite all of this, India continues to be the fastest growing large economy, expected to be the fastest growing large economy for many years to come. Secondly, we've invested deeply in infrastructure. In the last 10 years, we've doubled our port capacity. We've doubled the number of airports in India from 74 to, I think, 150 plus today. expecting to take it to 225 in the next 5 or 6 years. We've expanded our highway and roadway network very significantly. We have started 114 inland waterways, and a large investment-led growth has been the focus of this government for several years now. In terms of public welfare, the government has built 40 million homes for the poorest of the poor in the last 10 years, and will add another 30 million homes in the next 5, so that 25% of the poorest in the country will now have a proper home to live in, where their children will have a quality of life. We've ensured that every family in the country, every home in the country, going beyond even these 70 million, gets electricity, gets digital connectivity. Already about 160 million homes have been connected with water from a tap directly at home. In the next 2.5 years, every home will receive water coming directly from a tap. Every home in the country today has a cooking gas connection, so they are not dependent on traditional means of cooking. We are now moving towards piped gas connection in all the cities of the country. We've had the fastest rollout of 5G connectivity anywhere in the world. And I think by end of calendar 26, the entire country would be working only on 5G. We have already started developing our indigenous technology for 6G, for telecom connectivity. On every sphere, we make sure that 800 million people in the country get free food grains. Many of them may not even need it. They may be in the lower end of the middle class. But we still thought it's important to make sure that no child ever sleeps hungry for want of food. In fact, during COVID, we had doubled down on it. We had doubled the entitlement to each of these 800 million people for 28 months during COVID. The idea being that if there's any delay with all the disruptions, people would still have enough at home to make sure nobody ever has to spend the night hungry. And I'm happy to say that there was not a single starvation death across the length and breadth of the country. It could be the remotest corner of the country at the borders. Almost 620 million people are entitled to free health care. Obamacare had failed. Our Ayushman Bharat mission has succeeded. I'm sharing all this with you, friends, to take you to my next point, that today India produces the highest number of STEM graduates. We've expanded our medical education, our engineering education, our university education. I won't get into the statistics, but significant expansion. In most cases, almost doubled what it was 10 years ago. And the world's largest number of STEM graduates come out of India today. 43% of them women. We have focused on promoting innovation, the spirit of inquiry, so that more and more new ideas get an opportunity to flourish in India. Our Startup India mission, launched in 2016, has taken us to the third largest startup ecosystem, growing from about 450 registered with our department to 157,000 today in a span of 9 years. The next 10 years, we hope to take it up to 1 million. In terms of innovation, we've launched a $6 billion innovation fund where the government will be supporting private sector and academia to partner with government to encourage research and development. And mind you, R&D in India comes at a fraction of the cost that is incurred by the developed world. So something that, let's say, Switzerland would spend $10 billion to develop, we could do that in India probably for 500 million or maybe even less. I don't know if you're aware that we sent our Mars mission. Our Mars mission costs just about $50 or $60 million, less than what a Hollywood movie would cost. In a way, we are preparing the nation to leverage what started as 3Ds, progressed to 7Ds. And while I was sitting and jotting down some notes there, I came up with 10 Ds that define the India opportunity and the potential India growth story. Our biggest strength, of course, is our democracy. It gives us the rule of law. It gives national treatment to everybody. It ensures nobody will ever be discriminated against. It ensures that if you are wronged, you will always have an independent, very strong judiciary to fall back upon. The second D is our demographic dividend. We have a young population. Our average age is 28.4. We are expected to continue to be young for several decades into the future. This young population, now with their basic needs taken care of, is very aspirational. And this aspirational young India provides us the demographic dividend, which most other countries, developed world, who are aging very rapidly, are going to suffer from, are going to find it a problem to have young people in their workforce. India will continue to have a large young workforce. That's our demographic dividend. We have a huge amount of diversity in India. Even our cuisines change from village to village. Our dialect changes from village to village. Our gods are plenty. We have different cultures, different traditions. This diversity provides newer opportunities and newer offerings for the rest of the world. We've been able to digitalize, as I mentioned earlier, very rapidly. And on the back of our digital networks, our startups are innovating with agri-tech, digitech, with the financial world adopting technology very rapidly, education adopting technology. So in every respect, the digitalization of the economy launched in 2015, Digital India, has played an important role in how we see the future. India is focusing on decarbonization very seriously. Irrespective of what other countries may do, we believe we have a climate crisis on hand. And we are focused towards our own net zero goal, albeit with a transition period. And decarbonization, sustainability is a big business opportunity both for innovation and for businesses in India. Our young men and women are a very determined lot. There's a lot of determination to achieve a better quality of life for their families. This determination drives them to work hard, drives them to experiment with newer ideas, drives young India to be innovative, to find solutions. The priority of the government is development of the entire nation. We believe that unless we have inclusive growth, unless we take growth to the remotest parts of India, we can't have a lopsided situation where cities and metropolitan areas or south and west of India only develops fast. Our focus is that we take development to the less developed regions in the east, in the northeast, in the northern parts of India. So that opens up a new set of opportunities for development of these regions. All of this put together has one very common theme, and that is dependability. You can look upon us as a trusted partner because even during COVID, India did not let down a single commitment that we had made to anybody in the world. So we quickly rejigged our operations. Literally overnight, we started providing broadband connectivity to people's homes. And whoever had their back offices in India, whoever had their service centers in India, whoever had anything to do with India was able to continue their operations. We did not let down any bank, any financial institution, any Fortune 500 company, anybody, in terms of what we had committed or our service level agreements. We made sure we met every commitment that we made to the world. And therefore you can depend on India. We provide you decisive leadership. A good idea, Prime Minister Modi and his team are willing to quickly take up that idea and act on it. We work closely with the states in the federal structure, save and except one or two examples where we have a little difficulty. By and large, irrespective of political affiliation, the entire country becomes one, works as one, in terms of taking good decisions, providing decisive leadership, supporting businesses. I think I've covered 9 probably, if somebody is noting down. 9? So finally, I think demand defines the India story. Imagine 1.4 billion aspirational Indians looking for a better quality of life, looking for all the good things of life. Show me any other country in the world where you can sell 250 million washing machines maybe in the next 10, 12, 15 years. Or 250 million big refrigerators or television sets or better smartphones, 1 billion better phones if somebody can develop one. Maybe we should get some of the Israelis to come up with nice encrypted technology which cannot be hacked even by Israel. And you'll find 1 billion customers in India. That's the demand potential that India offers. And in a way, this 10 Ds is the India story going forward as we work in the Amrit Kal, the golden period leading up to 2047, where we'll celebrate 100 years of India's independence, where we have collectively as a nation given to ourselves a commitment that we will make India a developed nation, a prosperous nation by 2047, where we will be a $35 trillion economy. We'll make sure that every child born in this country receives the best that anybody in the developed world can get. That, friends, is the India story in a nutshell. I invite you to be a part of this journey, and I really look forward to an opportunity to visit Israel, to reciprocate your goodwill along with my Indian colleagues in business. So if I can conclude by saying, next year in Jerusalem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now request our minister to kindly hand over a token of appreciation to the visiting minister. Request all our dignitaries for a formal photo opportunity, please. Would you like to step forward? Yeah. Oh, okay. Fine. Ladies and gentlemen, with that we will conclude this session. Our next session will start immediately. Request all of you to remain seated while our dignitaries leave the hall. Request you to maintain decorum and remain seated while our dignitaries leave the hall. Our next session will start precisely in 3 minutes. Request you all to remain seated. There is no coffee break, so I request you
जब बंधा हुआ है